time doing some of these things. Get out and talk about our football team. Be very optimistic about what's going on. As we practice through our OTAs and our mini camp, I haven't made a bad call all season. Every practice has been good. Tomorrow I get to do a Father of the Year banquet with my wife and kids, so they love me too. Something tells me September might be a little bit tougher, but it's a great time of year to be a coach. I appreciate y'all having me. You know, I get a little nervous sometimes when I'm talking, to tell you the truth. And whether I'm talking to the team, whether I'm talking at a function like this, and I try to do some things to help me work through that, and make myself a lot of notes, practice before I come, try to make myself feel as comfortable as I can. And my boy Tony over here, Wiley, kind of hurt me today. I got through a practice. I'm feeling very good. We walk off the practice field. I know I'm coming over here. I know exactly what I want to say to y'all. And walk up with the media, which I do every day after practice, which is a custom. There happens to be a few more there today than normal because it's our last day, so there's about 30 microphones in my face. Tony says, y'all hurry up because he's the keynote speaker at the touchdown club. So Tony, thanks a lot, man. I know what I got to go do. But now we just got off the field. We've been through a lot of work. Very excited. We spent this time this past 3 days with our young players. Gave our older players not a break. They were doing some lifting and running, and we're trying to get those younger players some reps. The game's changed so much, folks. It has changed so much. You know, from when I played, the number of players that went to camp, what was expected of you, how they go about the off season. I mean, just think about this off season right now. We've had 12 weeks of running and lifting already. 12 weeks of off season program. We've had 17 football practices. We've had 2 holdouts, and hell, we ain't been to camp yet. You know, so I mean, the game is so different in what we're doing, but we're getting ready to go, and I'm excited about it. You know, I look back throughout my years as a player, as I said, we take 120 guys to camp. Nowadays, we take 80. They're supposed to be ready to play right away. I mean, there's no change. I remember when I played, you would go to camp with this big group of guys. You'd go somewhere away from your home city for camp. We went to Greeley, Colorado. I'm not going to say we didn't work real hard, but you know, we kind of knew every watering hole within about a 10-mile radius of practice field. But we were working toward the season and getting ready to go. I can remember the 1986 Super Bowl playing the Giants, Bill Parcells Giants. I remember sitting in a locker room like it was yesterday, and there's Tom Jackson, who's with ESPN, Butch Johnson, who played down the road in Dallas for a while. They were smoking a cigarette, talking about how important this Super Bowl was to the Denver Broncos. I promise y'all that doesn't happen in our locker room anymore. One of the big changes in the game, and I'm going to tell a little story here. Back when I played, you had to give signals. There was no coach-to-quarterback communication system. Nowadays, we can talk to Matt in his helmet. Johnny Holland can talk to D'Amico. We can give them the defense. We can give them the plays. Makes it a lot more easier. But back in our day, we had to give signals. And I'm going to tell this story. I see 3 ladies here in the audience. Okay, it's not bad. Father Clint, he's my spiritual advisor. He'll forgive me for this one. So it's not real bad, but I think it's kind of interesting. But anyway, we had to do signals. Okay, there was no other way to get a play in. So Elway and I played together for 10 years and played for Dan Reeves the whole time. And we had many plays that we ran. And John and I would have to go through the signals all the time before the game. So, you know, we had various signals that we used, and we looked like a third base coach, and we would go through our signals. And I remember we had this play called Blitz Mid 8363. We ran it a great deal. We probably ran it 2 or 3 times a game. Well, John asked me one night, about a year or 2, he said, hey, Coop, you know, we run this play so much. He says, instead of going through the whole outfit of the signals, he said, Coop, if Dan wants you to run Blitz Mid 8363, he says, just reach down and grab your crotch. That's as bad as it gets. So I said, okay, John. So for years, Dan would call the play, I would give the signal, John would run the Blitz Mid 8363. So anyway, we're in the Super Bowl in '86. And we're sitting up in our room the night before the game, and we've got the game plan, and we're going through all the plays. And so we get to this particular play, and it's Blitz Mid 8363 switch. And John says to me, he says, hey, for years now, when Dan wanted 8363, you would give the customary signal and run the play. He says, what happens tomorrow? I said, what happens tomorrow if Dan calls Blitz Mid 8363 switch? He says, reach over and grab Dan's crotch. So needless to say, we did not run that play. I told you it would be that bad. back to Houston, many things have changed, a lot of things have stayed the same. I go back to my days at St. Pius. I remember when I was at St. Pius High School. I remember Wayne Graham, head baseball coach at Rice at Scarborough High School. I remember playing against him, and the great job he's done. I can remember the Astrodome was a place to be in Houston sports, whether it was the Oilers, whether it was the University of Houston, the Astros, but going to the Astrodome as a kid watching sports. I can remember going to Sam Houston Coliseum, Paul Bosch and the wrestling with my dad. I don't know what's there now, but Sam Houston Coliseum's not there anymore. And then I remember Astro World as a kid. Went there 3 or 4 times a week during the summer. My office looks right out toward the Astro World property, and there's no more roller coaster out there, so things have changed a little bit. My time at A&M. When I went to A&M, I think there were 15,000 students. We had the Great Southwest Conference with Rice, Houston, Baylor, University of Arkansas. Those are some great years. Now A&M has, 55,000 students. They had the Big 12. I was driving through town a couple of weeks ago, and I stopped, and I was looking for one of my old hideouts, and I stopped a student, and I asked where it was, and he looked at me and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So times have changed. I had a brief stop in San Francisco. Had a 1-year stop there, won a beautiful Super Bowl ring. I learned a great lesson in San Francisco as a coach. When George Seifert hired me, I went in there, thought I had a lot of great ideas. I was fixing to get a chance to coach Steve Young, which was a pretty good gig. And I remember reporting for work my first day, and I had all these brilliant ideas and what I thought I was going to do with Steve, how I was going to add to what the San Francisco 49ers do. George called me in his office. He gave me a key to my office, and he had 30 films. He had 30 films stacked up. And he said, Gary, he said, the first 10 of these films are Bill Walsh teaching our system. He said, the second 10 is Mike Holmgren teaching our system. He said, the third 10 films is Mike Shanahan teaching our system. He said, you go in that room right there, and you watch him teach, and you figure out how you're going to teach our system. And what that taught me was it was about the system, it was about the team. It wasn't about what all the brilliant ideas I may or may not have. And I learned a great lesson there and had a great time coaching there. Had 22, 23 years in Denver. Had a great time in Denver, Colorado as a player, as a coach. Raised my family in Denver. Had some wonderful times there. Was part of 5 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos. 2 on the good side, 3 on the bad side. Okay, but had a great time. But folks, I always dreamed of coming home. I always dreamed of coming back to Houston. And along the way, throughout this process, I think I had about 6 interviews to become a head coach in the National Football League. I'll mention 3 of them. My first one, and you may have heard this before, but I had Al Lerner from the Cleveland Browns. He told me that he had shoes older than I was, so I knew I wasn't getting that job. My second interview, I was offered the job, and I'm not going to mention the team, but the owner offered me the job, and he said, Coach, we're only about 1 player or 2 players away from winning a couple of Super Bowls. I thought he was about 30 away, so I didn't take that job. And then the last one I interviewed was one of the man I respect most in the game. About 8 years ago, at the time, after the interview, stood up and told me anything I was quite ready. 4 years ago, I got a chance to interview with him again, and I worked for him today. I came back to Houston because of Bob McNair. That's why I came back. Was it a chance for me to come home? You bet. It's a great opportunity. Was it a chance for me to be a head coach in a tough league where there's 32 jobs? You bet. But I came back because I believe in him. And I believe in what he stands for, and I believe in the way he wants to try to win a championship in the city of Houston. He's a tremendous man, and he's given us every opportunity to get that done. And then in a lot of ways, when I got back, not much had changed. This is still the greatest state. This city, the fans' passion for sports, their passion for football has never changed. The food in this town is the greatest. I've ate more barbecue and Mexican food in the last 3 years than I had in 23 in Denver. And it's still hot as heck here. Golly, it's hot. And you know what's really interesting is the people I deal with on a regular basis, and a bunch of them are sitting here today, almost like none of them changed. Bob Allen's still with 13. Matt Musil's still with 11. I deal with Mark Berman on a regular basis. The general, I deal with the general, be it good or bad on a regular basis. With John, but it's interesting, all those guys have stayed the same. So it's really been just such a joy to come back. 4 years ago, we got started. We had a long way to go. I don't have to tell you all that. We had a long